Welcome to the 5th official episode of Peace of Mind. I am one of your hosts, Destiny Smith, a first-gen college student, a revolutionary, and an entertainer.
And I'm your second host, Arianna Collins, also known as Artist ASAP, also a first-generation college student.
All right, so as usual, Arianna, what are we talking about today?
Today, we're going to just be having a conversation about children, the resources, and the impact of adults in our lives.
Okay, nice. So, if you don't mind, how many children do you want? I love your face.
For the record, right now I have none, but I honestly have always wanted like an only child, but if I have a boy first, I'm going to try again for a girl, because I want a little girl.
That's so big that you said that, because when I say I want a girl, people look at me like I'm crazy.
Yeah.
Like, why don't people want to have girls first?
Because they're harder to raise and, attitudes or whatever.
Yeah, all those stigmas. Okay, so do you have like a certain point in your life where you might start trying for children? Like, what's your ideal, the fantasy?
Successful. After I'm successful. Like, I truly feel like, and this is just for me personally, I feel like a child would slow me down. Just because I'm the type of person, whatever I'm doing, I'm going to put my all into it. Mm-hmm. So if I have a kid, baby, nobody's going to see me but my kid. I'm going to be for real for the first couple of years, because not years, but you know what I mean? Like, a lot of my attention is going to go to my kids. So I feel like once I'm successful, I feel like I've done what I wanted to do with my career and am financially in a place to give a child the world, then yeah.
I agree. I feel like even as children, like when we were 15, 16, 17, whatever, and we were like first introduced to like the idea of having kids and stuff, you start your cycle and those other things. Like, we do kind of create like this perfect world like to raise a kid in, right? Especially because, as we said in our last episode, that we didn't necessarily have a perfect world, if that exists. For me, I kind of agree with you though. Success to me looks like being able to have time to walk my dog, take my daughter to school or my son to school, being able to be there. Right? And so I have to ask, like, do you think that trying to achieve success, like, okay, like this is the main thing on our brain, like I need to be successful, I need to be this, I need to be that it kind of pushes us back to being like, 30-year-old moms? Because how long does success take?
I think success is linear. It's about what you feel like success is. Everyone's version of success looks different. Someone's success may be just having the kids in the family and staying at home and being a mom, and that could be okay. For me, I feel like I want just to be in a certain place with myself financially. Like, I want to make sure that I'm good without my husband and or whoever, and yeah.
Okay, I see you. Do you think that you want that independence outside of like your husband, your marriage or whatever?
Absolutely.
Because it was taught to you that we have to be financially able in case a man messes up. You can't like fall back on him and stuff like that. Do you feel like that's where that stems from?
I definitely think I have a hyper independence no matter the situation, because not just with relationships, I've been taught coming up, you only got yourself regardless. So I kind of like to be prepared for anything to happen. And, I hope for the best with everything, but I do have a bad habit of just assuming the worst is going to happen. So I kind of get into situations preparing to leave. Before I even have to. Okay. And that's a good and bad thing, I feel like, though, because they can be toxic.
Yeah. I think I'll just say this, just to play devil's advocate a little bit. Do you feel like because we were taught that hyper independence and then we try to display it, that just creates a constant cycle of, us showing our kids like, that they're individuals and not team. Like, it's not a team. You know what I'm saying? Like, they're not, to not be submissive in a relationship, because I do believe to submit sometime is to just, don't worry. Like, he has you. Like, he got you. Like, that's why you dedicated and devoted your life and gave him children. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Do you feel like that'll create, will continue to fester a toxic cycle for your daughter?
I don't think it'll be toxic. I think that it's important to know how independent are you trying to make your child, because you don't want to raise a child who can't go out into the world without you and is clueless without you. Mm-hmm. But you also don't want to raise a child that thinks that they have to be without you, or that their everything has to be figured out without you. So it's interesting, but I think creating a safe balance, like, you're going to be in my house, you're going to be taken care of, but at some age you have to I want to be taken care of too one day. So that's going to be, you know, a conversation and something that I think I'm going to instill in my child. They're going to know that they always have me, but I want to create a person who wants to be independent.
Okay. I'm going to create a scenario. So you're having a conversation with, I'm going to go with just a daughter, right? Mm-hmm. With your daughter or whatever. And you're telling her what you're just basically telling me about having a healthy balance and stuff like that. And your daughter says to you, well, Mom, why don't you like let Dad dictate where we get to eat tonight or stuff like that? Like, she points out a moment where she saw you kind of like, I don't know, you see what I'm saying? Like, yeah. Okay.
I feel like that would be good, and I feel like if my daughter says that, then I did my damn job right. Because I feel like a healthy relationship between a parent and a child, it should be respectful, but you also should challenge and grow each other. That's about it. We not just, when we do have kids or people in general, you're not just raising that kid. That kid is also watering you and flowering you and making you become the person that you're going to be. You're not just a mother. You become a person from motherhood. So, yeah.
I get what you're saying. I kind of agree, but, like, I still feel like we're pushing that hyper independence on our daughters, like, to not feel like they need people. But in reality, you do need people. Like, you know, especially, I don't know, like, I just truly believe that if we continue to teach ourselves and our kids, especially our daughters, that, oh, you have to have this on your own, you have to do this, you have to do that, like, it pushes them on the other side of the spectrum, the hyper independent spectrum, not the balance. Because to have balance is to know, like, okay, well, you can't necessarily do everything on your own. And that doesn't mean go find a man or a woman to, you know what I'm saying, but to find friends, even starting there, friends that help, because you can't really do much without friends, especially in business. So things of that, okay, so I can do that same scenario, but I'll say your son. So your son points out like a time where he saw you kind of like I don't like to say not listening, but kind of having words, right? With your husband, you know, you being super independent, and he points that out. You know, how do you think that'll make you feel? Because maybe your son becomes attracted to hyper independent women,
and that is a problem. Oh my God, I'm so glad you brought that up. We finna talk today. So I don't know. That is a great question, because I feel like, especially in the Black community, we have a lot of males, and I'm not just talking about from people that I've dated. I'm talking about from my cousins and stuff. I can see that we have come from places where we see the mom being hyper independent, because a lot of time from Black families, we don't have a father, whatever. And because of that, we go out into the world, or boys go out to the world, and they expect, you know, their girlfriend to be that hyper independent woman, and they don't pick up that because they never seen it. For me though, I hope to give my children a 2-parent household. Like, that's something that I don't think that I would even be ready to have children unless I know I have that. But once again, that doesn't mean that a 2-parent household will survive the whole time your child is alive. So I don't know. That's something I think that you just have to go step by step. And I don't want to talk too vaguely, because our children are our children, but they're our own people. So how your son may react to something, my son won't react. And how the pick, like, oh, my kid gonna act like this. You don't know.
Exactly.
So yeah,
you never know, right? But like, to be, you know, a tool, a resource. But when we cannot be a tool and a resource to our children, right? When we cannot like always be there, of course we'll be attentive and be good listeners. But at the end of the day, we are both people who just admitted to like wanting to be working moms, like women who have their own, but it also contributes to the family, right? Not just having your own and only spending it on you, just to clarify. But yeah, so when they don't have those resources, or say for instance, a 2-parent household doesn't last, like you said, and you have a son or a daughter, what do you think that you do? Like, what would be the next best step for them?
I think it's very important to get your children involved. And I think that with whether you have a child in foster care, a child in a 2-parent household, a child that's a village is raising them, get that child involved in. One thing I want to bring up is UCAN, which is, you know, we both have been there, which is, well, let me start with what is UCAN. So UCAN is a trauma center that I went to, I want to say my first time around 13 years old. And their goal is to help kids from our communities and our unfortunate situations get to better situations, understand why and how to navigate through these things, and teach leadership skills and things like that. So that's something that I was in. I think it kind of shaped me to be able to have the personality and the strongness that I do today. And I think that'll be a good type of thing to engage my child into, because you can also has a lots of outlets for you to find out. Maybe your kid likes to make music, so they got a music program. Maybe your kid likes to play sports, they got a gym with some coaches up in there. Like, so it's just a good opportunity for children to have other adults and also some resources to see what they like and who they want to become.
Yes, to piggyback off of what you said about UCAN, I entered UCAN when I was like 14 going on 15. I know I was already a freshman in high school, and I started out in a program called Phenomenal Woman, and I believe you did too, right?
Yeah, I was in Phenomenal Woman.
Exactly, right? And so what I would say is that definitely been in a room full of women, right? Whether that's girls, adults, whatever, women. We're going to just leave it at women. It helped me, understand sisterhood. I come from a family of all boys. I have all boy first cousins. Like, it's crazy. My peers are always male. So to be in a room with women and we help each other, like we listen to each other. We talk about the things that we face in society and things of that nature, how to navigate through those things. And they also had a program for gentlemen. My brothers were in it. They didn't last as long because they're not as consistent as I am. But it wasn't because you can't push them out. It was because they decided that wasn't for them. And so I agree that's super important for children to have.
That's another thing I like about UCAN. They give you a choice too. It's not like a school. You're not forced. You kind of get to see what you like. And a lot of the programs are very fun. Like, you're going to learn a lot, but they're also geared towards you finding out yourself. And it's interesting that you mentioned Phenomenal Woman, because I started Phenomenal Women my first time when I was 14, when I was first getting into the program. That was the first program I ever did. And how you mentioned you were very comfortable around women and stuff like that. When I first started Phenomenal Woman, I hated it. Because listen, I was the type of kid and I was the type of girl who I don't like hanging with girls. They too much drama. I like to hang around. I used to be that girl. And I think it was because the relationship that I had developed with my mother. My mother and I it was almost like she was jealous of me, honestly.
Yeah.
And I didn't know how to understand that because I was so young. So I took that with me and I carried it on to my female friendships, and I automatically got into rooms full of women. I'm like, here we go. Here they go. They finna start. And so Phenomenal Woman and you being in that program through, you can kind of help me get into a situation where I'm comfortable being around women, working with women. And now I think that, like, my best friends are girls now. I used to have all male best friends, and I came from a family of boys like you. But now I'm more in my feminine energy, and I'm more surrounded around females and getting advice from females because of that program.
Shout out to you for that.
Yeah.
I'm still struggling developing and maintaining friendships with women. That's something I struggle with often, and I do think it is because I have a up and down relationship with my mother. Like, one minute we're cool, the next minute we're not. One minute we're talking, the next minute we blocking each other, things of that nature. And so I find that is something that happens in my friendships too. But I don't blame UCAN for that, just to clarify. But they did give me the tools and the resources, and I can always go back. That's another thing about UCAN. You can always go back. You can always go back and ask questions. You can always go back, for new leadership, new guidance, new mentorship. But yeah, I do think that is a great, like, nonprofits like that are great for kids, and they're everywhere. Like, let's say that not just UCAN, but shout out to UCAN, but other nonprofit organizations, so that if things do happen, like the household falls short of one parent or things like that, there are places for them to go and to grow.
Yeah,
that's super big. What else would you say that you can contribute it to in terms of your personal development or financial development in terms of your career and things like that?
I think UCAN was actually just honestly a big turning point for me. They helped me in a lot of stuff. They gave me, like, I had to do a lot of work on my own within myself, but they kind of helped me realize that to get to where I want to be, it started within myself. So like I said, I started with Phenomenal Woman. I started getting more into, like, public speaking and becoming a leader. And now through that, I go to college, and I'm doing this program, which has helped me with, this podcast has gave me the opportunity. And then also the public speaking that I learned and speaking out and not hiding my trauma, because that's another thing I used to do. I used to walk into a room, and I didn't want to make friends or anything like that, because if you become my friend, then I have to tell you about me. And I hated doing that. I don't want you to know any, like,
Such an Aquarius.
But it was just because I had experienced so much trauma, and no one wants to hear that, bro. Like, honest to God, like, even I know people are getting tired of hearing sob stories. And it's not a sob story. It's just that it's who I am, and it's a part of me, and everyone can't accept that. And so with being a UCAN, they made me feel comfortable with knowing that you didn't come from the best situations, but you need to, there's people out there who need to know that. And then there's people out there that's like me.
Yes.
And you can kind of make you, this is a big one. And before coming there, I thought I was the only kid in the world who was going through that. The only kid in the world that my mama don't like me, or my mama and me going through problems. I'm in foster care. I'm separated from my siblings on and off. I have to sit in front of a facilitator to talk to my little brother. I'm just like, this is only happening to me. And then I go to UCAN with hundreds of girls and boys doing the same exact thing. Yes. And it's like, okay, I'm not alone. And it takes that weight off your shoulder because you kind of feel out of place in life, in society, like you don't belong anywhere. But yeah, that's what UCAN did for me.
That's great. Just to respond to my own question, it also gave us, I know you did some kind of like hosting a certain events, or it gave us those platforms, and that goes on our resume. Like, let's just talk about that. I did a youth peace council where I had to do the work, like you said, like, you know, figuring it out, what we're going to talk about. Of course somebody was there to help and to facilitate, but like, for me to be in a room full of people like my peers and stuff like that, and kind of talking and guiding the conversation and stuff, that was a little intimidating for me. Like, you know, can I do it? That was the only thing that was going through my head. Like, am I ready to do stuff like this? Like, do people even want to hear what I have to say? Like, how do I get somebody to focus again if they get off track? Like, all of these things, because my anxiety got really bad. But doing it and then having that help, that assistance, that reassurance that UCAN offers, it made it easier. And now I feel like I can go in any room and say anything, you know, talk, you know, teach, learn from people as well. Cause I did that there, learn from people. I will say Phenomenal Woman did help me tap into my femininity, you know, like, cause I'm surrounded by all boys all the time. So like, you know, sitting a certain way, like that stuff that, you know, I feel as though some people say, oh, you should have knew that already. Like, yeah, but like I'm around males all the time, so they sit a certain way, like legs open, things of that nature. So I was kind of picking up on those things, but like how to sit, you know, mannerisms too. Like my mom taught me mannerisms, don't get me wrong, but I learned even more there. Like I didn't know that people don't eat with their elbows on the table, because we in the house, we eat and we throwing down. That's just what it is. Nobody's checking our mannerisms and our etiquette. But yeah, UCAN is super resourceful, and I hope that programs like this last, so when we do have children and we can't always be there, or the dad can't always be there, that they have somewhere to go that's not the street. Yeah. So I think that's super important. Anything else you want to add?
Yeah, I just think that in general, like with resource, you know, programs, and I don't want to just say like not-for-profit organizations, get your kids involved in school, get that girl on the cheerleading team, let that girl dance, you know. And it's so because for me, when I was growing up in foster care and I was adopted, my first couple years I wanted to do cheer and I wanted to do dance and I wanted to do all this type of stuff, but because of my behavior I wasn't allowed to. And so I honestly think that if I was allowed to be me, that my behavior would have changed too. So I think that, you know, looking at these extracurriculars and these resources, not as a privilege to your kid, but as like a need. This is like just as much as they need food and water and clothes, they need to feel belong somewhere outside of their home. And be a part of something bigger than themselves. So yeah.
To piggyback off of that, it's so crazy. Like whenever we come into these conversations, I've just had conversations similar too. Like like yesterday, I was talking to my boyfriend or whatever about like where did he feel like his life went left, you know, like what does he feel like things could have been different? Because I told him the truth, like it all starts at home. Like, you know, so what did you feel like you didn't have? And he said the same thing. Like people didn't believe in him. He wants to be a barber. Right. So as a kid, you know, that's like telling your mom, well, I want to be a firefighter. I want to be a superhero, you know, things like that. They weren't listening to him. Like that was something he actually wanted to do. Instead of giving him like clippers or whatever, like, you know, little baby clippers to practice with, to work, you know, in like a little doll head or something, or getting him into programs with barbers where, cause you know, they have those, they kind of like, oh no, get a real job. oh, is that what you want to do? Like, kind of shunned him. And he said from there, he started to lash out to an extent, like rebel. Like, oh, y'all don't want to believe in me, then I don't believe in anything y'all say. And so then he stopped going to school. He was a perfect student, like good grades, just behavioral issues. Like, oh, I don't want to listen to this. But because parents and adults don't like feed into our wants, right? Because that's a want, but it's also something that could have took him further than he is now. In our dreams, right? Like, you know, we kind of rebel. We don't care anymore because you want us to care about school and being a doctor or anything like that. But that's not what I want. So I think that's important to give our kids those resources.
And I think it's important to continue to feed your child's imagination and support their imagination, because once the imagination is gone, the hope is gone. And I'll tell you that too, because I had lost myself before because of situations kind of like your boyfriend, where you just don't care, like, you don't want to try no more because it's like you're not doing anything you want to do for you. And so I remember, like I mentioned, I make music ASAP, and I've been making music for as long as I can remember. That was something that I did being in the toxic environment that I was, because I could keep music. I love it, and I could make my feelings something beautiful. Because I used to feel so down, but I made it into something beautiful. And so I remember when I was with my aunt, in high school, I went to Westerhouse High School, very like hip high school, trendy, like stuff. We had a lot of stuff going on. But anyways, there was these boys, and they was like, we're going to take you to the studio. My first studio session ever. And matter of fact, shout out them. Vaughn, William, and Darrell. They was like, we're going to take you to the studio. You too raw. I used to like beatbox at school. We used to freestyle in the lunchroom, and they paid for my first studio session because I didn't have a lot of money, and my auntie didn't. Even when I got adopted, they didn't even give me a lot. Like, they gave me what I needed, but there was not much else because I was always in trouble. And so I used to tell her, like, I want to go to the studio, and her husband used to be like, girl, you talking about you finna be a rapper. Go rap them dishes. Go rap up. Like, nobody's paying for that. Like, they know, they really used to tell me, like, no, I'm not finna pay for that. You got to find your own money. Manager, I'm only 15, so I don't, you can't even legally work. So Devon and Daryl, they took me, and I had a great time. And now when I got 18 and I went to college, I started making music and paying for my own way to do music. And let me tell you this, the first EP I ever dropped was called Hood Butterflies. I did 2 interviews, 3-page shows. And I have got like a lot of different opportunities. Oh, like, come to this session, do this studio shoot. Matter of fact, I just did a photo shoot last week because of music. You feel me? And they don't even correlate. But I had to started getting all those opportunities when I did it on my own, versus I wonder if at 15 years old, my auntie, my uncle was like, because they knew I was raw. I used to rap to them and all this type of stuff, but they just didn't want that for me. They didn't care what I wanted. They wanted what they wanted for me.
Exactly.
They would have put that much energy. Girl, I probably...
Yeah, you'd have been with Cardi B in this.
No, seriously. It's just for real,
I believe it. Yeah. But no, I agree. I didn't know what I was interested in until after I left college, you know, and that was something that my mom didn't want me to do. My aunt kind of like, she didn't want it either, but she tried to play the fence. My dad was dismissive of it, of course. But then I enrolled into an esthetician program, which is like a skincare specialist. And my dad was like, oh, I'll pay the first month's tuition, but after that it's all on you. And mind you, the tuition, even though I had like FAFSA and stuff like that, like I was still coming out of my pocket $350 every month. And mind you, like I wasn't necessarily working. It's actually kind of hard for me to maintain jobs because, like I told you, like the deficits of the injury. So like my attention span, my motivation, like these are all things that are different about me. But yeah, when I finally like entered to the program, he didn't even want to pay the tuition. He didn't want to pay the first month. I had to figure out how to do that. And every month after that, like nobody was believing in it. It was questions like, oh, you're still in that program? When we had Thanksgiving dinner, oh, you still doing that? Like nobody cares. Oh, Destiny. And then my mom would be on the phone, and Destiny not in school no more, but I'm actually in a trade school. Like they literally don't, if it's not an institution, a 4-year university, then it doesn't matter. But I finished. I definitely finished the program. Thank you. And I have the choice of whether or not I want to get licensed or not. But now I have the opportunity to get licensed in 2 different states. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. But it's important for us to, like you said, feed into that with our children and stuff like that. And you said something else that I thought was really important, but it's like, I'm losing it right now.
Support the imagination.
Yeah, it was something else that you were saying about like redirection and things like that. It'll probably come back to me later and we could talk about it. But yeah. So do you feel like with your children, if they come to you and they say like, yeah, mom, like, I don't want to do this no more. Like, and it's, you know, they're in school, like they just want to quit, whether it be high school, college, whatever. How do you respond though?
Okay, so
because we're criticizing, but do we get it?
There is a difference from letting your kid being a kid, and then you also still have to be a parent. You ain't finna be in my house like not going to school every day. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying I'm going to support you through school. I'm going to make sure mentally you're, you know, in a space where you're happy to go to school, or you're coming home to somewhere happy after school and stuff like that. And if whatever you want to do at school, I'm going to support it. If you want a basketball, you basketball. If you say forget basketball, I want to cheerlead, go ahead and be a cheerleader, baby. I got you. Like, because you have to give your kids the opportunity to figure out. You feel me? And then has to be, and I want to bring this up because you mentioned everyone was kind of mad when you started doing something else, but you were still doing something. There has to be trial and error. There's no way for anyone, adult or kid, to know what you like until you try it and fail or do good. Of course. So, yeah.
Some of the greatest lessons actually do come from failure too. So I like that you said that. But I think that was a pretty good episode. We touched on a lot. There's nothing else that you want to add? No. All right, great. Well, until next time, thank you for viewing.